I'm Dave Sherwin with Dr. Kepo'o. Today we're talking about the number one diet in America currently, according to Google searches. Okay. When people search certain diets, the number one most searched diet in America is the Paleo Diet, indicating there is a ton of interest in it. A lot of people are doing it, probably because of CrossFit. It became popular when they started traveling around, going to the CrossFit gyms. The CrossFit people really loved it, felt like it really helped them get better results with their exercising. I eat a paleo-ish diet, I think. There's a lot of good about it, but there's also myths, and there is some bad. And so, Dr. Kepo'o, take it away. The paleo diet. Let's talk about what's good.
You know, the really good things that I like personally, especially with all the patients that I've worked with and diet and food and nutrition and all that, one thing is that it's ancestral, meaning we're going back to the basics. Okay, we're staying away from these foods that have been modified, right? Just like this, GMO type foods, right? Okay. We're getting away from those foods. And the paleo diet says stay away from those foods. It also talks about staying away from gluten, right? Gluten is actually highly inflammatory inside the body. And so it keeps you away from creating inflammation in the body, which creates so many different disease processes in the body, okay? Now, I wanted you to mention this because I thought this was kind of funny. Being vegan, but yet eating red meat.
Comes from Kelly Starrett, to give credit where credit's due. There's a phenomenal book called Becoming a Supple Leopard. As a matter of fact, our next video, by the way, will be on the biomechanics and minimalistic training and those type of things.
Awesome.
He's kind of the expert on it, and he owns a CrossFit gym as well. And this is what he said. He said, "We teach our athletes to be a vegan that eats red meat." So it's kind of a great quote. This ancestral issue, part of it is not just back to the basics and pure food, but it predates dairy and agriculture specifically. So
Correct.
Part of their argument is dairy and agriculture are the devil. True or false?
I think that's false.
Okay.
Yeah, which leads us right into these myths right here. Okay?
So, a myth. They claim that during the Paleolithic era, which is about 10,000 years ago and prior for that period of time, when man was developed, this is not Neanderthal man. So for those, little history, I guess, on this. Neanderthal man is before Paleo man. Paleo man looked like us. As a matter of fact, part of their argument is Paleo man was about the same height as we are today on average. And then when agriculture and dairy were introduced, according to the Paleo folks, the average man's height and woman, we use man here in the mankind sense, shrunk about 6 inches, disease increased, cancers, diabetes, congestive heart failure. All of these things, they say, are much lower during this period of the Paleolithic period. So they claim that agriculture and dairy is part of this shrinking, weaker, higher disease.
That, and actually the studies have shown that agriculture did exist back then. So there's actually tools that they have found that the paleo man was using to actually grind up grains and different products that paleo says to avoid, but yet we know now that they actually did have that agriculture back then.
Okay.
So,
and myth?
In relation to foods being modified, it kind of goes back to this. They're saying that, well, foods have been modified so much in relation to, they had these little type of, vegetables and fruits and like that.
We can't possibly eat the same foods Paleo man ate.
No, we can't.
Natural broccoli. You ever see real broccoli in a field? There's an excellent video we'll reference on the show notes on our blogs from a TED Talk given by a woman who's got expertise and a degree in ancient diets, who covers this. And she shows you on that video what ancient broccoli looked like and what modern broccoli looks like. In other words, what we have done through science, through research, through cross-pollination of plants and whatnot, is created the foods that we like to eat. Instead of skinny little scrawny, not tasty carrots, we buy juicy, sweet carrots from the store that Paleo man would have had a hard time finding.
Correct.
And he would have had to eat a whole ton of them to get what we can get out of one carrot. So it's a different carrot. It's different broccoli.
Exactly.
It's different fruit. Everything is modified. So we can't possibly... So back to the myth, we can't possibly eat like Paleo man did.
Right. Exactly. It's just not viable. And then another myth is that there's just not one diet that can be applied to everyone, right? Because we had different cultures back then, right? Paleo man was in different...
Paleo Eskimos?
Exactly.
Paleo-Africans,
Yeah.
Paleo-North Americans, all ate differently.
Yeah, they had access to different types of food.
So the very sentence, the Paleo Diet, makes no sense.
Exactly.
Okay?
Right.
That's a myth.
The quantities that we could actually get these days is so different than what they would have had back then, right? We're able to get a lot more within a 15-minute period than they would have in a 4-hour period, just for the mere fact of that hunting and gathering that they had to do, whereas we don't have to do that type of thing these days.
Right. And
Right.
we gather those qualities by going to the grocery store, where they've gathered them from all over the world. My fruit might have come from California or Florida. The eggs might be from a different state, and so on. And Paleo Man, of course, was constricted to a very small geographical area. So
Exactly.
we've gone over the good, the bad, the myth, the good and the myths. What about the bad?
Now, one of the things, Paleo Diet, basically they kind of say stay away from the modern science. Stay away from those foods that science has made better, is what they like to say, right?
The Franken foods,
Correct.
which we agree with.
Exactly. But there are the good modified foods out there, like we just talked about right here, right? There are those foods that have been modified or changed or extracted, but that make it better for us, right?
Fruits,
Exactly.
vegetables, through a lot of science over the last few hundred years, developing great orchards with certain strands. And so we can actually go buy a Fuji apple or a Granny Smith or a Golden Delicious, and those didn't exist in the Paleo era. Those have all been created through cross-pollination. I don't even know if I'm using the right word, so those of you that are into fruit, forgive me. But we've created all these great strains that they couldn't have, and that's a good thing. So don't think that everything science does is bad.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
And that plays right into the next one, which is supplements. I'm currently trying to drop about 5 pounds before my next race. And I'm using raspberry ketone right now.
Okay.
It's one of our products that we sell in our store. And it's one of the ones made popular by Dr. Oz because they did research and in blind tests, the group taking it lost 8 pounds on average in a month versus the placebo group. And so I'm like, why not? Why not use modern science? This is a perfectly natural product, but I have to eat, I don't remember the exact, it's something like 10 pounds of raspberries to get as many ketones as I would get from 2 of these pills. So this morning, with my breakfast, I took a couple of these because it helps me drop that 5 pounds, preparing for my next race. And so we're saying you eliminate opportunities like that. How about this one? African mango.
Right.
Only available to Africans in the Paleolithic period, but you can buy supplements like African mango, another great weight loss supplement. So some of these things science does are very good and make our health handier, easier to achieve.
Exactly.
You've listed here protein.
Right, like protein powders, right?
Having a protein powder, very convenient when you can't track down an animal and kill it.
Yeah, exactly.
Extracts, fish oil, vitamins, minerals.
Correct. Yeah, one big thing about vitamin and minerals these days is that if you were to eat just like a paleo man, right? They had much more rich soil and more access to having those vitamins and minerals in their foods. We don't really have that same access. So we actually need vitamins and minerals to be able to supplement what we're missing in our depleted soil these days.
Okay, very good. Shipping,
we can, it's that variation, right? We can get the African mango because we have shipping involved these days, whereas Paleo Man wouldn't have that back then. And then dairy, we have dairy here because, again, that's one of those things where Paleo says we need to avoid dairy. Well, actually, if you get dairy from the right source and you get it in a raw source, it's actually very beneficial for your body. It helps build your body in a very, very fancy way, actually. It's really neat. We'd have to talk about that in another time, but that's one of those things.
Okay, so the basics, though, are that we agree with much of the Paleo diet, but we disagree that you can't eat any grains at all, or that you can't eat any dairy. And there are some things that modern science has done that makes it easier to be healthy, to be an athlete, to lose weight that we can take advantage of. And click on the link below or attached or near to this video. If you want to see the show notes, links to things that we've referenced, we'll put that TED Talk in there so that people can watch it. It's very funny, actually, and it's actually it's very good. And so we'll put a link to that as well. Any closing thoughts?
No, I just think make sure you go out and do your research before you just jump into anything like this.
Generally speaking, I love the Ben Greenfield approach. He's one of my favorite podcasters who says basically, don't follow named diets. And so I think a paleo-ish diet does make a lot of sense. There is a lot of good there, but don't be a follower. Just do your own homework. Find out what really works for you, I think.
Exactly.
And then follow that. This is Dave Sherwin with Dr. Kepo'o, wishing you success in your health and, well, that's about it.
Yeah.
Wishing you success.